Hello, welcome to Letterwatchd. It's our first edition of Letterwatchd. This is going to be a monthly podcast show where my good friend Ronnie here.
Hello everyone.
Ronnie here and I will run down our monthly watches on Letterboxd. So Ronnie and I, if you don't know what Letterboxd is, it is a great app, and you can kind of log the movies that you watch and keep a diary, keep it rated. Yeah, some people like to clown it. But,
some people do clown.
But it's fun.
Jake's introduction just kind of got me into movies, so I'm pretty happy about that.
That's right.
Because before this, I was like,
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, you can actually like rate them and log them.
Yep.
And then that was just like, and then the pandemic happened, so it was like perfect timing.
Right, that's all you got to do.
So like every month last year, I watched 11 movies. Got them all in Letterboxd. I was like, this is it's so good. Like I just got all nice and organized. I can see what movies I've seen.
Yeah, keep track of when you watched them. It's a fun app, so we would highly recommend it. We're not this show is not at all like sponsored or like affiliated with Letterboxd. We just really like this app, and we wanted to make a whole podcast about it.
It's so good, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So basically, how this show will work is Ronnie and I will each kind of go back and forth and talk about day by day the movies that we watched in April. So this is the April edition of Letterwatchd.
And then next month, we'll do April again.
Yeah, we'll do April again next month. We'll go to the same movies. But, so yeah, Ronnie. I don't know, did you watch a movie before April 5th?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you started because my first is April 5th.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
April 3rd, I watched Dog Day Afternoon.
Okay.
I saw it on like Instagram, movie Instagrams, and I just see that one scene of him screaming outside of a bank, and I'm like, oh, this seems like really good. I look on Letterboxd. The average score is 4.2. Anything above 4 is good. It's a 1 to 5 star rating. And I was like, oh, this looks like to be really good. I don't know. I didn't know like anything going into it. And I was like, oh, this is probably like a serious movie. And it does not end up being that way. It was a very, very good movie. I was very surprised of how well it was. And there's a twist in the middle. If you haven't seen it, I guess you can, I don't know, skip for like 30 seconds. There's a twist where it actually becomes like an LGBTQ kind of thing where he's gay and his partner's like transitioning. So it was like, and for 1970, that's like, wow. And it's a real story. So it was just a really interesting story that had a lot of twists and turns and didn't take itself too seriously. And it was a real event that happened in New York. So it was a really good movie. I recommended Jake, and Jake also watched it.
I did. I watched it a little later in the month, so I'll touch on that a little later. All right, so then I'll go.
Oh, I actually have one for
you
the
got
4th.
One more?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
This one we can breeze over.
Okay.
It's Godzilla vs. Kong.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just mind-numbing movie. We already went over it way too long, so I don't need to talk more about
we have
that.
a full review on the Mayhem Zone. If you're not familiar with that podcast, that is another one.
Oh, sorry. Dog Day Afternoon, 4.5 stars.
Okay.
Very good.
Nice. All right.
Godzilla vs. Kong, 2.5.
2.5 stars. Yeah, so we'll also give it the stars that we gave it. Okay, so then mine, I have April 5th here, and I watched Source Code. It came out in 2011. I wanted to watch this because I wrote a film about kind of like a sci-fi plot. I'll get more into another movie that I watched, which is much more directly related to the short film that I wrote. But I wanted some inspiration for like an inventive sci-fi, and so I watched this, and it's a cool movie. It's really cool. They made use of the budget. They made use of the budget, and it was a cool little movie. And I don't know if it got the attention it deserved. It kind of reminded me of like Moon, like that same, and it's the same director, I think, where like Moon was a really cool like sci-fi movie, and this is also a really cool like sci-fi thriller, and it kind of went like unnoticed, and it's really underrated, but like really good.
I remember seeing it like probably more than 7 years ago.
Yeah, it's solid.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like one of those movies that you're gonna like remember, but it's pretty good. I feel like this is like I think this came out in the same year as In Time. I didn't see that, but I think this is like the better version of that. And the ending was kind of weird because it was like,
oh yeah, I remember it was very like
it was strange, but I think it has the same problem as like Wonder Woman 1984, where it's like, oh, this guy every time he goes into the train, he possesses somebody else's body. And by the end of the movie, spoilers, he figures out a way to continue living.
Yeah.
In this like simulation.
That. And he keeps on going.
But he lives in this guy's body, so it's like, oh, this guy's just getting shit now.
Yeah,
It's like, I guess he doesn't have a say in this. Like he is just now not existent in this. I think they explained it away where he's like, it's an alternate dimension, so now he's occupying his body in a different dimension. But then again, the real him is dead because the train thing happened.
So it's like
I don't know. That was a weird.
It's a very messy way to explain the ending.
It got a little convoluted toward the end there, but I enjoyed it a lot. And then did you have any on April 5th or no?
I had April 8th.
Okay, so I have 6 and 7.
Okay.
So all right, April 6th I watched American Beauty. Oh, I gave Source Code 4 stars. April 6th I watched American Beauty. Some of the stuff hasn't aged well with Kevin Spacey, of course.
Oh yeah. Yes.
But I actually loved it. I loved this movie. I thought it was great. I thought immediately I was like, wow, a lot of things that I see like memes of are in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Like a lot of the music is present in memes, and like the plastic bag.
That was a Family Guy.
That's like all over the memes. Yeah. Family Guy. I've probably seen a ton of memes with the plastic bag. I didn't know like a lot of like popular things happened in this movie.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, this is like kind of like a big deal movie where it's like, oh, this is like referenced in pop culture all the time. I love that bit where she like opens her shirt and all the rose petals come out.
Oh, yeah.
That was really great. And yeah, like I mean, Sam Mendes I think directed it.
Yeah.
He's great.
That was his first movie. That was such a
Is
good
it really?
movie. Yeah.
Wow. He did a great job. It was great, and I really loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars.
I think I told you I watched it before you. Did I tell you to watch it? I think I told you I watched it.
I think I saw that you watched it.
Yeah.
And then I had always meant to watch it because I saw that it was like a renowned, like loved film classic, and I think it won Best Picture. So I was like, I should probably watch this at some point. And I saw it on HBO Max, and I'm like, hey, like, and then we had already talked about doing the show.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, let me like just start watching movies every day.
I do like that the theme of the movie is him kind of going through that midlife crisis and realizing like, you know, who he actually is, and there's problems in his life that he never recognized before.
Right. Yeah.
And also, like you said, it references him being a sexual predator.
Yeah. Right. And
the girl in the movie
exactly
is portrayed as 17.
Yep.
And I'm like, wow.
Very
on the nose.
Very, very similar to another movie that I watched later this month, but we'll get to that later. But I noticed a couple of common themes that I'm just like now thinking about, but it has nothing to do with like sex at all. But it's a different way to deal with like a midlife crisis, which I thought was kind of cool. Mm-hmm. And then April 7th, I watched Minority Report. Tom Cruise, Steven Spielberg. I loved it, but again, this is the one that I watched that was very similar to my short film, where it's like, a guy that can stop crimes before they happen. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh no. And it's like specifically murders, which is also my thing. And I'm like, all right, well, you know, I wrote it before I saw it, so I didn't rip it off. But also, like, mine's a little different in terms of, like, this is more of like a sci-fi action film, and mine's more like a mystery, like thriller. So that's kind of where I draw the line.
Yeah.
But Spielberg does something kind of interesting in this movie, where like he had his like DP like wash out the film, so it looks like lived in. So like all those like effects and things are still there, but it looks like super washed out, so it looks like lived in and like grimy and real. At times it was a little bit too much, and it like stands out, and it's way too like blindingly white. Mm-hmm. And he does that again in another movie that I watched this month, which I'll talk about later, but I don't know if I loved that all the way. I think he maybe could have relaxed with that and just like, all right, a little less bleach on the film in this part, because like Tom Cruise looks like it looked like you didn't see the Harry Potter movies, did you?
No, but I've seen.
It looked like there's like a bit toward the end of the movies where like I think it was like when, I guess spoilers for Harry Potter, Harry is able to like figure out like the curse or whatever, and then he actually like dies for a little bit. He like goes to visit like Dumbledore in like heaven or something, and it looks like that.
The effect is just so
like it's like just so white, and it's like, oh, like this is way too like heavenly. Like this doesn't make sense. So I kind of got a little bit annoyed with that, but I really liked the movie. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I dug it. Okay. So what did you watch on
April 8th? I rewatched Shutter Island for I think the third time.
Nice.
The first time I watched it, my mind was blown. I was much younger. I didn't really watch movies like I mentioned earlier to this extent. So I was like, wow, the twist in this movie like had me there like, Jesus, like, am I even who I am? And then on the subsequent rewatches, I've gotten down on it. Not that it's bad, but I've gotten down on it. You notice, spoilers, after several rewatches the like little hints that show that, you know, he actually isn't, you know, an actual like, you know, FBI agent or whatever.
Yeah.
You see how Mark Ruffalo's character, he pulls out the gun, and if he's an actual whatever deputy or FBI guy, he would pull the gun out. He pulls out the gun and the like holder, like the holster, and he's like handing over, and it's like, if he was an actual FBI guy, he would have just pulled out his gun. Like that's just a normal thing. And then there's scenes where every time, sometimes they're kind of hinting at stuff that like, oh, the bad things that he did in his life that they're trying to bring up to him, like in a secret way. There's Mark Ruffalo makes a lot of eye contact with like the main doctor guy, so I still like it. Gave it 4 stars. Just that first time blew my mind, but I think after that I kind of settled down on it. But yeah, good movie, very good.
That's one that I should probably rewatch soon too.
Also, there's that one, I've seen this a lot on Instagram movie profiles where it's like, oh, the police are standing behind Leo and like the 2 other crazy people at the insane asylum, but not Mark Ruffalo, and it kind of hints again that he's actually a crazy person, but without actually saying it at all. Yeah. And there's that weird edit where the woman's drinking the water and there's no glass. It's supposed to signify that Leonardo isn't actually, like, something's not right here.
Yeah.
That you don't know about yet.
Right. That's yeah. I definitely need to rewatch that.
It's a good for a rewatch to reanalyze. Like, oh, I noticed this and that and that and that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I got April 10.
Yeah. Okay. So I have 9 and 10.
Okay.
For me, it's like 9, 10, 11, 12. April 9th, I watched The Grand Budapest Hotel, Wes Anderson.
What was that on, or did you buy it?
It's on Prime.
Okay, because I do want to watch that.
Yeah, it was very good. It was like a good little movie. That's how I feel. I tried this month. I really wanted to watch like more directors. Mm-hmm. I was looking more into like I needed to watch some Wes Anderson movies. He his style is a little bit annoying sometimes for me.
Yeah.
I think it's like charming and like cute.
Oh no, it is a charming cute because I've seen Moonshine.
Yeah, Moonrise Kingdom. I also watched that this month too. But I don't know. It got to be like, it's like, oh, this is like too perfect. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's how I felt. But I enjoyed the movie. I gave it 4 stars. I liked it. I think it's one of those movies where it's like, yeah, I don't think I ever need to watch this again, but it's fun. It's good. You know, it was enjoyable, and it's like charming.
I feel like he's one of those directors where either you really love it, or either you really love it, or it's okay, or you do not like it at all.
Right. Yeah.
There's like kind of no in between.
Definitely. But I liked it. Yeah. And I liked Moonrise Kingdom as well. But it's like, it got to be like, oh, this is like way too like perfect. I'm not into this. But what'd you have for the 10th?
For 10, I had Brokeback Mountain.
Oh, nice.
I mean to watch for a while because obviously you have Heath Ledger and you have Jake Gyllenhaal, and they are both amazing actors.
I've never seen this.
And unfortunately,
Heath Ledger
passed away. He's like I did not know how good of an actor he was. In this movie, he is such a completely different actor, and he obviously acts as like a southern kind of reserved, not tough guy, but he acts like this southern reserved guy. Yeah. And I forgot what the time period is, but it's like, I think it's 50s. It's like southern 50s, and he maybe even earlier than that. But regardless, he like goes to a farm. He goes to work on not a farm, but like ranching sheep. For some reason, they have to keep moving sheep up and down a mountain, and he ends up going with Jake Gyllenhaal, and they're kind of just there together. And it's not like a lighthouse thing where it's like, oh, they're just so alone together all the time that they have that one scene where they might. It's like they actually genuinely like each other. And it gets shown for the first time very explicitly out of nowhere. I was like, well, okay. The thing I thought was going to happen with this movie, which didn't, I thought was going to happen was they're going to have this one meeting and the summer was going to end because the whole point is that, when winter comes, this kind of ranching work ends. I thought what was going to happen was they're going to have that because that's what initially happens. They go ranching and then it ends. I thought then they're going to live their own lives because they both end up getting married because there's that whole thing where it's like you have to kind of hide it. Yeah. I thought they're going to go most of their lives doing the whole being married thing, and then they're going to eventually meet up like one last time near the end of their life or near later. That did not end up happening.
It would have been like kind of like Call Me By Your Name.
Yeah. A little bit. Yeah. A little bit. But it kind of ended up being a little messy because it was a lot of like, oh, they would meet each other and then they wouldn't see each other for a few years, but it wasn't clearly shown in the movie. It was kind of just said like, oh, it's been 3 years. We haven't seen each other. Right. But it's been like 10 minutes in the movie. And then that happened a lot where it's like you see the conflict of their relationships and Heath Ledger's wife. Do you mind spoilers?
No.
Heath Ledger's wife kind of finds out about this, but she doesn't say anything.
Right.
And then Jake Gyllenhaal kind of has this weird relationship with the father of his wife, and he doesn't like him. And it was good. I gave it 3.5 stars. Okay. I just wish that some of the timeline was more like shown rather than said. Because I still really like the ending. I still like the whole movie and the idea of the movie being and coming out in 2005. that's kind of a good movie to kind of break through. And obviously, they thought these actors were like, why would you take this role? Because at the time it would have been seen as controversial. But they really both pulled it off really well, and they themselves had their own relationship conflict because you have Jake Gyllenhaal. Oh no, one of them's like, because I forgot who. Unfortunately, one of them's like, I really want to see each other more often, but then the other one's like, I can't.
Right.
And it ends up being this big issue every time they kind of see each other.
Right.
But yeah, I really liked it. 3.5 stars.
And that's Ang Lee, right? Director Ang Lee. I think it's Ang Lee.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Ang Lee.
Yeah, I gotta check out more of his stuff too. That's another director.
I forgot what this was on. It might have been on Netflix. It was on Netflix.
Yeah.
If you want to see it.
Yeah. I have something the 10th as well. World of the Worlds with Tom Cruise, another Tom Cruise Steven Spielberg movie. Same issue, too bleached out sometimes, and especially with this one, it's like why? It's like modern day.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't need to look lived in. It's like a it's an alien invasion movie. Why does it need to be bleached out? I really liked I actually loved like the first half of this movie. I've seen a lot of it. I went back and I kind of watched some older reviews of this. A lot of people were saying the same thing. It kind of dips at a certain point. Like there's a certain thing that happens in the movie where they go to like somebody's house.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happens, I think the movie kind of never recovers.
So it's kind of like Looper in that sense.
Like what? Looper?
Remember
Yeah,
Looper?
Yeah, a little bit.
They go to the house and everything kind of
like,
slows down a bit.
Yeah, I enjoyed a little bit more of the Looper stuff though.
Yeah, obviously.
But this one was like it gets a little bit too. The ending is because for most of this movie you feel like the dread. Like I could not believe how like they really went there with this movie where it's like it's like violent and really intense and scary, like really scary. And I was shocked. I was like, oh my god, like Tom Cruise and his kids, like what's gonna happen? And then at a certain point, it kind of like wraps up a little bit too nicely, and I'm like, I wanted this movie to kind of like have like lasting dread, where it's like this is not gonna end, like it's just gonna continue to be a problem. But it kind of like wraps up in a nice little bow, and I was like, all right, like this is like Spielberg didn't want everybody to go home crying, so I guess that's what happened. But like for the first half of this movie, I'm like, this is really cool. I gave it 3.5 stars. I liked it, and it was especially good to watch. Like a newer alien invasion movie because I haven't like seen a lot of them as of late. Like I've like obviously like E.T., all those like kind of older movies, but this one was like really cool.
Yeah. Has there even been like really any alien movies recently?
I mean
besides
mine.
besides Abductee and maybe like Alien.
Yeah. There's not really like original alien abduction movies. I mean, all of them are like very like low budget.
Yeah. The only thing I'm thinking of is that Paul one, like
District 9.
Oh,
that was like 10 years ago already.
Yeah.
So it's like
probably more
longer. Yeah. Elysium. That's not really even aliens either. Yeah, no, there's not a lot of aliens. But Independence Day, like 2, which was horrible. Yeah. But yeah, so I enjoyed that though. Did you have anything April 11th?
I do.
Okay, what you got?
I have I, Tonya.
Okay.
That was on Hulu. I watched it. I liked it. I thought again it was kind of. I don't know why I seem to have this issue with a lot of like life stories, even though for some reason Forrest Gump's my favorite movie of all time. They kind of skip around too often in this movie where she kind of grows up and then. Like, I was watching with my mom, and, like, halfway through it, we were like, wow, there's another hour. We're like, wow, we still have a lot to go through. And that other hour is a lot better, because there's actually something happening. I think the reason why I like Forrest Gump so much is that there's the plot of him and Jenny the whole time, and there's actual storyline being built, and there's an actual story there where he's like, that kind of pulls the whole movie. But in this, it was like, oh, she's growing up, she meets a guy, she's growing up, oh, she's going to the skating tournaments. And then when it hits that half where then it becomes about her skating, I mean, her doing that thing that actually happened in real life, that was like actually interesting because it's like actual plot and characters were doing actions that had consequences and it's intrigue to it. But yeah, I gave it 3.5 stars. I liked it. I think it's a good watch. But also it's just kind of, I think this also has an issue with a lot of biographical stories where they kind of they try to show too much and it feels like they're skipping around and not showing. I don't know. I don't know how to properly articulate it, but this movie had that issue.
I remember not liking. I think they did like some weird like CG stuff with like her. They did her skating.
Her skating. You can definitely, if you look at her, you can tell her face is like CG'd on.
I don't. That's weird. It's like deep fake stuff. That took me out.
Point, yeah.
I remember that. I was like, I saw it in theaters. And I was like, this is like unnecessary. Like, you couldn't just train Margot Robbie how to ice skate. I know like she's supposed to be like amazing and all this stuff, and it's like kind of dangerous, but like. come on, like this is too much.
And her and Sebastian Stan were really good in the movie, though.
I remember really liking Sebastian Stan, and our boy from Black Klansman.
Oh yeah,
was also he's also funny.
He's like typecasted as like a doofus idiot who messes stuff up.
Yeah.
All the time.
I gotta watch Richard Jewell because I think he goes out of in that one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, except in what's it called? The Five Bloods. Was he not like an idiot?
Oh yeah, well he had like a little small role there. He was like a part of the guy's team or something. Yeah.
Well, he's typecast.
But I think even he was the one. Didn't he? Isn't he the one that like stepped on the mine? Or maybe not.
I don't
somebody
remember.
else did that. Somebody else did that.
I don't remember. But yeah, good movie. 3.5 stars.
Okay. Oh, did I talk about the 11th? Right? Yeah, I'm on the 11th too. I watched They Live, John Carpenter.
Oh yeah.
Older movie. It's definitely kind of not aged well, but the concept and like the idea of it is so strong. I loved it. Like I loved the idea of it. Like say what you want. Like it's a very like cheesy, like dumb movie. But
what year?
1988.
And it's like
and it has not aged well. There's like it's Roddy Piper. It's a wrestler, right?
Yeah.
So he's the star.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he's the star, and then the guy from Requiem for a Dream is also in it. I know it's Pretty Baby, but
really?
He's in it too. Yeah,
that's such a strange pairing.
I know. Yeah, so they're both in it together. I love the concept though. Like he gets these sunglasses. Do you know anything about this movie?
I don't.
He gets these sunglasses and like looks around at the world, and he sees like these like skeleton faces, and these are all like it's like kind of like the Illuminati or something. And so he sees like all these like higher up people. Like he looks at the news and they all have skull faces. And he looks at all the billboards and it's like obey. Like and it's like all subliminal messaging.
I've seen not from this, but I've seen that like not trope, but the idea. Done before.
It's so great, and it was like it all started there, and I love that, and it inspired me, and it made me be like, yeah, no, like I want to do some stuff like this, and there's like an idea that Devin and I have in the works to do something similar to this, and it's like it's so cool. But that being said, I gave it 3 stars. I think it a lot of it is kind of like hasn't aged well. It's a little cheesy. It's definitely got like that that Arnold Schwarzenegger let's get this guy with his shirt off all the time.
Yeah,
his muscles are always friggin' popping, and the guy's not a great actor. Like he's okay.
Yeah.
And then and then there's a fight. I remember there was a fight scene. I actually read about this. There's a fight scene between the 2 leads, and it goes on for like 17 minutes. And it's just like them like bleeding, like just like and they're like falling on top of each other. You could tell that they like choreographed it a little bit, but it's like you got to learn how to cut that, like because it was like way too long. Yeah. I remember that being like a drag. I was like, this is
how long's the movie?
Like an hour and a half.
So
that was like a big part of it. I mean, it wasn't like actually 17 minutes. It was like it was like 7 minutes, and I'm just like, this is too long.
That's like 10% of your movie. It's just one
pretty
fight
much.
Scene.
It's like just like this like really kind of like half-assed fight scene. That like the director was like, I just loved how much they practiced this, and I'm like, well, they didn't practice it enough because it's way too long. Do you have anything in 12th?
I do.
Okay.
I have Solaris.
Okay, yeah, you got to tell me a little bit about this.
Which was on HBO Max. I saw the reviews of this on Letterboxd. It has like a 4.2. It's from 1972, so I always get a little nervous when I see older movies that have high ratings because sometimes I feel like people only saw it once or they saw it a long time ago and they really liked it then because at the time it was really good and then they haven't seen it recently. I've watched this movie and I can kind of see why people like it, but I just did not like it. I ended up giving it 2 stars. I did not give it a like. There's a like option in Letterboxd. I did not give it a like.
Yeah.
The movie starts off and you're not exactly sure what's happening, but there's a really, really interesting scene where these like government officials are kind of talking about this planet that somehow humans have been able to go to. It's called Solaris, and they explain a scene. They explain it's like an older. So there's a few characters in it, and one of the characters is like an astronaut that's been there, and it's like kind of a report of what happened to him there, and he's showing the other people because their son is going to Solaris. So he's showing that kind of family what happened to him, and it's this really interesting perspective where they're just kind of talking about what he saw, or he's saying like what I saw, and he's like it doesn't make any sense at all. He's like, but that's what I saw, and they think it's hallucinations. He's like, you can't tell me that. That's what I saw on when I was looking at Solaris, and they send the sun up, and what happens? The whole premise is that when you go there, you see hallucinations of like. I don't know if it's certain people, but you see hallucinations of people, and he ends up seeing his dead wife. It's a really interesting concept. it like doesn't do it. It
It's
just
like drag.
it just it's a 2 hour like 40-50 minute movie, and it doesn't go anywhere. It's just like she's there, and at one point he sends her. There's like a rocket ship that like an exit pod kind of thing.
Yeah.
Emergency pod. He sends her off in that. And when he goes up there, there's 2 other scientists, and one actually killed themselves and like gave the other guy a message. I forgot what it was. And one of the guys that's still there is like, "Oh, you sent her off in the pod. Like, don't worry, she's gonna come back." And she does come back because it's like a figment. It's somehow like the planet kind of mind kind of connects with the person there, so they create these illusions, even though the other people don't really have one. There's like one split scene where one of the doctors has like you see their hallucination, but it's never seen again in the movie. I like the sets are really nice. I can't tell if they're doing a great job acting because it's in Russian, so it's kind of tricky to see that. The set's really nice. The idea is really interesting. That one scene in the beginning is really, really interesting. But then it doesn't really go anywhere, and it's 2 hours and 50 minutes. Some of the cinematography is really good.
I bet the director's like pretty well known.
The director's
too.
very well known. I was like really excited.
Somebody that I want to watch.
I'm like,
too.
there's another movie he's made that I want to watch called Stalker. I've heard is really good.
Was he the one that was supposed to do Dune? Is this that same guy?
No, he's really old.
Who's this guy?
He's this Russian guy.
Name? Andrei.
Andrei Tarkovsky.
I think he was supposed to do.
Really?
Dune. I think so. I think so.
He would be like really old now, though.
No, not this one. There was one in development back in the
like
day.
the David Lynch kind of time.
Around then, but there was he had like an idea to make like a crazy long epic.
That could have been really good.
Maybe
I can tell he knows what he's doing. It's from a book, so I feel like that also kind of has an issue where I think sometimes movies and with books, like the book is really good, but when you try to kind of make not a 1-to-1, but you try to format it for a movie, it doesn't work because you have certain things that work in books where you have these kind of interesting side dialogues that don't necessarily contribute at all to the main story that work in books, but in movies it doesn't necessarily work. I think that kind of happens in this movie. And because what ends up happening in the end is that they're like, oh, if we send like part of your something to the planet, like the hallucinations will stop, and it eventually just stops. And there's not like a lot of like reconciliation that his wife's. I mean, they kind of talk about it, but there's no like intense scene where they're kind of like, talking about it. There is an interesting point where she's the wife is like, I don't know who I am. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I know I'm not actually who I am. But yeah, the movie doesn't really go anywhere. There's kind of, like I said, with the book thing, there's kind of scenes that just are there that I feel like are from the book that just don't go anywhere. And then they made this movie with, I don't know who, but they remade it like an American version that was very, very low rated. Yeah. So they kind of took this. Probably at the time, it was probably a really good movie. It does have a break in it because it's that old where it's actually like baked into the movie.
Yeah.
But wow. I really wanted to like this movie, but then it dragged on. Nothing really happened, and it kind of just ends. Mm-hmm. Oh no, it does end ambiguously. I won't say it because if you end up ever watching
one day.
It ends. I mean, it doesn't spoil it, but it kind of ends in this ambiguous, weird way. I guess is open ended for a book might work, but from the movie I was kind of left like, I didn't really care, and I don't know what's happening, so I'm just like whatever.
Yeah, I was wrong, by the way. This was not the director that wanted to do Dune. It was Alejandro Jodorowsky. I don't want to get comments about it. It was not him. It was a different guy. I also had the 12th Dog Day Afternoon. We talked about it earlier. 4.5 stars, same. I was a little bit nervous at the beginning because I was like, all right, how are we going to do this the whole movie in this bank? Like, am I going to get tired of this? And they just keep figuring out ways to keep me invested and to give enough twists and turns to the point where I was like, wow, like he just doesn't give a shit. Like, he's just going to keep asking for stuff. And, like, he's just going to go outside and just talk to the police. Like, they're all got guns on him.
Like, I didn't mention, there's so many great scenes where he just goes outside and just starts talking to the cops.
It just riles up the crowd. Like, they all love him. And I was like, wow, this is great.
Because, like I mentioned earlier, it's like an LGBTQ+. And at the end, there's a rally of gay people, like they're like, go, like, I forgot his name.
We love you,
Yeah, they're like, we love you, like, you're amazing.
Sonny, right?
Yeah, Sonny. They're like, we love you, Sonny. And I'm like,
so
the movie's just so wild and, like, crazy.
Yeah, it was just
it was so unexpected.
Yeah. But that was me on the 12th. I have the 14th.
I have 14 also.
Okay.
Let me go.
Yeah.
I watched Django Unchained. That was a rewatch.
Yep.
Very good movie. 4.5 stars. Not much I have to really say. It's just a very good movie. I realize now there's some parts of it that I'm like, this could have been a little fixed up. There's some strange edits, which I've heard before. I watched a video about Quentin Tarantino's main editor. I don't know if they died or they just left, working with him. But this is the first movie that he didn't work with that editor. So there are some weird edits. The movie's still very good. I like the whole premise of, he's a slave that gets freed, and that, he gets purchased by a person who doesn't believe in slavery, but he uses it, and he treats him as a free person. And I really like the kind of, there's a point in the movie where the guy who bought Django tells a German story, and it's literally what happens in Django. And I really like that foreshadowing. It's like so obvious that it's going to happen. But you're like, I want to see it happen.
Yeah, it's cool.
And the ending is a little rushed. I remember the first time watching it being like, this is a really good ending. It's a little rushed where he kind of just gets out so quick and just kills everybody. Yeah. Maybe that's a pro for some people. For this time, it was kind of a con, because I'm like, okay, he literally kills everybody in 10 minutes, and then the movie ends.
Yeah.
Spoilers, by the way.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I remember that being like, like at this point in the movie, it's like, it's 2.5 hours in. It's kind of slogging at some point, and then it's like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just go. Let's just go. Yeah. And then they end the movie, and it's like, it's fist bumping, like, like blood and gore and all this crazy stuff.
I do love, though, there's one shot where he kills the wife. He's like, say goodbye, or Candy's sister. Yep. He's like, say goodbye. He's like, goodbye, Mrs. Candy. He just shoots her, and she just flies away.
Back. Yeah, that was great.
Like some of that movie is so good. Like
over the top.
Leonardo DiCaprio is amazing in that movie.
So good.
I'm so happy that because there's again Instagram movie accounts, they say, he was kind of nervous saying the M word, and he had time. Right. And Samuel Jackson's like, this is just another day for us. Like you have to do this. And Quentin Tarantino's like, if you don't go all like balls to the wall to this, like people are gonna be really upset.
Gonna buy it. Yeah.
And he just goes so hard, and he's just such a villainous, like awful person.
Right.
And I just love that he's an idiot he's just like, and then Samuel Jackson has to tell him that they're there not for Mandingo fighting, and he just cannot like understand that. Yeah. He's like, oh, and then Leonardo being so good, he just twists it, and now Candy's like, no, you're gonna buy her for $10,000. Like, you came here, you have the money, you're buying her now, and you're gonna shake my hand. And he's just such a like dick about it.
Yeah,
and it's so good.
Yeah,
movie very good.
It was
4.5 stars. Yeah,
I liked it. I also had a rewatch on this day. I think this is my only rewatch this month.
Oh, I remember this because Jake harassed me about
I know, all right.
Later this day,
I was joking.
He watches this.
I was joking. I rewatched Gone Girl, David Fincher, Ben Affleck. It is. I love this movie. I gave it 4.5 stars. It is great. I was super happy seeing this in the theater back in the day, and I just was like, everything about this is like perfect. Like they really did like David Fincher just like elevated this whole thing. Like the book is good. I read the book as well. Book is good, great even. But like he took it and was like, let's just do this story, but like let's like do everything like technically perfect. Like the lighting is everything. Like the camera work is just everything is phenomenal. And I loved the way he told the story.
Is it different in the book?
A little bit.
Okay.
But not really. It's pretty faithful because the writer wrote the movie. The author of the book wrote the movie. But there's like a couple of like scenes here and there that are cut for time, even though it's still like 2.5 hours long. But it's like it's great. I loved it. The pacing is there. It's one of my favorite like David Fincher movies, and it's one that I feel like doesn't get spoken enough about, especially like as time moves on. It's kind of been like we got Fight Club, we got Seven, we got Zodiac.
Did you do Social Network?
Social Network, yeah. All of those movies are kind of like remembered and like fondly
I get nervous
about.
Because that director I always confuse with someone else.
Yeah.
So I'm always like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because David Lynch, it's David Lynch, and then what's the other guy?
David Fincher.
I get them confused all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
So I'm always like, I don't know who I'm talking about. But and then I've seen that movie too. I don't remember too much because it was a longer time ago. I remember being very good. I remember being unique that the twist is like kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, and then you kind of see like what's going on with the twist.
They tell you everything about it. I loved it. I was so like, and I was like, what else is gonna happen in this movie? Like, it's not a mystery anymore. Now it's just like, what's gonna happen?
And I remember,
like, how's this gonna end?
I remember later, I think I actually watched Gone Girl in like 2016, 2017, and later, like a few months later, we watched The Girl on the Train. Yeah. Which was like that same movie.
It's like that, but like diet. Yeah, it's like really shitty. Yeah, I did not like Girl on the Train.
I remember Ben Affleck. I love the story that he's like, I'm not wearing a Yankees hat. I mean, because I want to leave the project. Like that was a huge concern to him.
Oh, he didn't want to wear one?
Because he's a hardcore Boston
Oh, and in the
person.
book he's supposed to...
He in the book he wears a Yankees hat, and he's like, I'm not doing it. Like, I don't care. And you're like,
okay,
wow.
I didn't even know that.
And then they compromise on a Mets hat. That's why he has a Mets hat in the movie.
Nice.
Because they're like, I want a Yankee. They're like, you have to wear a Yankees hat. It's part of the book. He's like, I'm not doing it. And he was like, actually, like, I'm gonna leave if I have to wear a Yankees hat. And you're like, jeez.
I love that.
Calm
That's
down.
so funny. Huh. Well, what do you have next? What's your next step?
I have 15.
Okay, I got 17.
I watched Piece of a Woman.
Oh, okay.
Gave that 3.5 stars. I liked the whole like first 10-15 minutes is one shot.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this looks really cool. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then it's spoiler sort of. What happens is the baby becomes like a new, it's not stillborn, but it was a miscarriage because the baby comes out, and then they're like, oh, it's fine, and it comes out blue, and like it's like
really scary.
It's really like because it's such a one take, and then there's like already like rumblings of there's an issue, and I'm like, I kind of know where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
And then the baby comes out and like, oh, it's fine. And then the camera cuts away to the girl like packing up her stuff, like looking in the mirror, like, oh, thank God. And then she turns around because the baby stops crying.
Right.
And then the camera turns back and the baby's just so blue, and you're like, oh my God.
It was so terrifying.
And then what kind of dragged it down was that then after that there's like relationship issues and it's not as intriguing. And then they're both kind of cheating on each other. And it wasn't that interesting, and I'm like, okay. It just seems like they're kind of just going through the motions.
Yeah.
I was very surprised that when the Safdie brothers in it, I had to look again.
Yeah, Benny Safdie's in it.
Benny Safdie's in it, and
Yeah.
I was so happy. I was like, oh, this is our man. This is our Safdie brother.
Nice, very nice.
And he's in it for like 2 times, and yeah, they kind of just go back and forth, and it's just kind of issues of relationship. My favorite scene was the woman from Requiem for a Dream just going off. There's one scene where she's like...
The older lady, right?
Yeah. She's like, I need to make you strong. Like, when I was born, I literally was, like, part of the Holocaust.
That was great.
And I was like, oh, my God, this woman can act. Like, this is probably, like, nothing for her.
Yeah.
She just went off, and that was such an amazing monologue.
What was it? Like, they held her upside down or something?
She was literally like, I was born Holocaust. Like, I had no food. I was like...
They couldn't get me a doctor.
Yeah, they couldn't get me a doctor.
If I hold her upside down and she doesn't, pick her head up or something.
If I hold her upside down, she doesn't pick up her head, like, we're going to literally kill her.
Yeah.
And she did that.
It's crazy.
And that was such a good monologue. I was like,
great
wow.
scene.
That literally gave me 3.5. If that wasn't there, I would have given it 3.
Yeah.
I was like, this monologue is so good.
It was really good.
She's such a good actress. Oh my God.
She killed it.
3.5 stars. It's still a good watch. It's still something that you should definitely watch, but it's kind of like...
I remember the Shia LaBeouf stuff kind of ended a little, it was like, just kind of send him away.
He kind of just leaves.
Yeah, I was like...
And also you see him full frontal.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think I remember that.
Because he's like abusively like, I'm going to have sex with you. Kind of.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I don't know, she's kind of like struggling, but she's not like saying no or something, so it's not like that. It's
very uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable. And then there's a point where he's like, no, I'm done. I don't even want it anymore. And he gets up, he just full junk.
Oh. Ew.
And there's a weird thing where it's like, he's sleeping with her brother or her sister or something.
Something, the lawyer.
Some weird. That's what
I don't remember. Yeah.
That's why I give it 3.5, because it's like it kind of just has like things going on that just don't really
add up to anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. What'd you get next?
I have 16.
Okay, go ahead.
I watched Moonlight. I rewatched that. I was like, I saw on Netflix. I'm like, I should give this another watch. Still very good. So like, I liked it a little more this time than the other time. I liked the transition of him becoming basically, how you pronounce his name, Mahershala Ali.
Yeah, Mahershala Ali.
Yeah, I love that he kind of transitioned into that, and he uses Kevin, which is the kind of love interest in the story. He kind of turns into black because Kevin calls him black when he's in the middle age where he's Sharon.
Right. Yeah.
And it was such a good movie. It's very well directed. It's obviously it won Best Picture. It's A24 movie. Everyone's doing a great performance. I mean, there's not much else I can say about it. I just really liked it more this time. I'm not sure what I liked. I think I more just appreciate it because I've seen so many more really great movies, and I can see how this is such a great movie.
Yeah.
I did. So, Letterboxd gives you only stars. I gave it 4.5. I give it 4.25. It's this stupid rating I have where I'm like, I know this is better than 4 stars, but for me, I can't give it 4.5. So
really?
I have my own separate list of 4.25 movies.
Oh, I think that's a 5-star for me.
I know.
Movie. I love it. Or maybe 4.5. Yeah, because it's not my favorite A24.
Because I understand because the director's so good. Oh
yeah.
The thing is, I like if Beale Street could talk more.
Really?
I love the directing that. I love the super shallow depth shots of that movie.
Yeah.
If that movie didn't have, I understand why they have this. If the movie didn't have the scene where the mom goes to Cuba, I would have given it 5 stars.
In Moonlight?
In a
Oh,
Beale
and
Street
Bill
Could
Street
Talk.
Could Talk? I don't remember a lot of that.
Because,
I remember
because
some of it,
because I understand why you have to go there, but it was kind of just such a like divergent part of the story that I was just like, this isn't really that important.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I still just just the directing and the story to that I just like more because it also has to deal with the race issue where you have that cop in the movie that's like, I'm going after you essentially, and then he goes to jail. Also, another reason why I didn't give it 5 is because it kind of just ends with him in jail and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
But the whole ride to that, I love the movie very much.
Okay.
I have 17.
Me too. So all right. So I'll start I watched Moonrise Kingdom. We kind of mentioned it earlier. I gave it 3.5 stars. I liked it. This one might have. It's so funny because I gave Grand Budapest 4, and I gave this one 3.5. But this one I could rewatch.
Oh yeah.
You know, like I thought this was a fun movie, and I enjoyed it. Kind of gave me like the Jojo Rabbit vibe. It's very similar.
Oh yeah.
And I liked that about this. But but same thing. Like it's just kind of like way too perfect at times, and it's like he's too quirky. You know?
Yeah,
it's
he's
just
very quirky.
He's way too quirky,
Yeah.
and I get. But I'm still interested to watch more of his films. I want to see like the new one.
I want to see the animated stuff that he's done.
Oh yeah, I saw Isle of Dogs. That one was cool. Fantastic Mr. Fox, I think, is on Disney Plus. I'll check that out. Like, and I heard those were great. I mean, Isle of Dogs.
And the
is pretty good.
quirkiness might work better for that because it's an animated thing.
Stop motion animated film.
And I love that he actually does stop motion.
Yeah, it's
And you see the behind the scenes of that, and you're like, oh my god,
a lot of work went into that. Yeah.
I got that. In October I got an iPhone for the first time, and everyone was so happy with me. And I had iTunes credit, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy a Moonrise Kingdom because it was like my birthday month, and I got the iPhone. I'm like, I'm gonna buy this for my birthday, and I watched it. I did like it. It did remind me of Jojo Rabbit, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoyed it. What do you have?
So 17, I have Network. I watched this movie specifically because it's the director that did Dog Day Afternoon, Sid Lumont.
Yes, Sidney Lumet.
Sidney Lumet. This movie's not as good as Dog Day Afternoon. It's still very good. It's 1976. I gave it 4 stars. It's kind of one of those older movies that like a lot of stuff kind of happens and there's interesting points, but it was kind of just like whatever.
Yeah.
And so I still appreciate the movie and gave it 4 stars because there are some good points in the movie and really good scenes in the movie because the whole point of it is that there's a TV show like talk show, not talk show, but there's like a TV, like a news person just talking, and he's literally like, it has that kind of feeling from Dog Day Afternoon where he's literally, you have a shot from behind the scenes where it's all the people kind of manning like, when to change the camera and ads and like that whole screen of buttons and screens, and it's literally a shot of him like on the screen. He's like, I'm retiring and I'm going to end my life on camera. I'm going to kill myself with a gun, and like nobody notices, and then they cut the break and they're like, wait, did he just say he's gonna kill himself on screen? I was like, oh my god, this is ridiculous. And then it kind of pulls back and gets more reserved, and there's this whole story with the girl, and it's more like corporate-y kind of story where it's like, they fire him and then they rehire him because he brought so many ratings in, and then they
know what? Will told me a lot about this movie.
Yeah. And what ends up happening is he basically becomes like this crazy talk show host that just kind of spouts out whatever he thinks is coming to his head, and they try to manipulate him
for ratings
because he gets bought about the Arab, like Saudi Arabian people, and then he goes off on this tirade on like how they're buying all the American stuff, and then there's one scene where he gets a talk with the owner who's Saudi, I think he's Saudi Arabian or whatever, and it's just like some crazy speech that kind of is foreshadowed earlier in the movie. It's such a weird like thing. Like you can't not like this movie, but I can see why you're like some of it's kind of slow.
Yeah.
Because if you actually like movies, you're like, okay, I can actually like this movie and understand why I like it.
Yeah.
But and then there's a side plot with there's like this woman in the movie who's from Bonnie and Clyde. I don't know her name, and she's like actually really good. And she's like a workaholic. She's like, I can only do work. Like there's a scene where she's sleeping, where she's like, even when I sleep with men, like I want them to just leave because I'm like, I just want to go back to doing work now. It's just like doing the TV stuff. And there's a whole kind of point where she's like, talking to whatever the guy from like the corporate side of the news station, and he's like, I'm literally the only link to like real life you have. Like if I leave, like your only source of like knowledge or anything is from the TV. And that movie does actually foreshadow like what's happening now with media, which is why Will might have talked to you.
Yeah, it was very
because the
timely.
whole point of the movie, not the whole point, but one of the time rants the guy goes off about is that like literally you're learning everything from the screen and like that's all you know.
Yeah.
And it's kind of now where we're just so over encumbered by social media and just being told all this stuff. So I was like, wow, that's actually like right on the nose. Like I didn't know that it would be so spot on. But yeah, I give it 4 stars. I really liked it.
Good. I have the 19th, Speed with Keanu Reeves. I was surprised how good this was.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be like some stupid cheesy 90s movie.
Yeah, I thought so too.
But no, it's like a really like white knuckle, like intense, like action movie. And like Keanu's not a great actor. You know this. He's not good. But it's fun and it's like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I loved the premise of like you got to drive the bus over 50 miles an hour, or it's gonna blow up. Like as soon as you hit over 50, it's gonna and if you go under that after that, you're done. That's it. The whole thing's over. I thought the villain was a little over the top, a little annoying. Didn't like him. I can't believe Jeff Daniels is in this movie. He's really great in it, and I buy him as like a cop. It was pretty good. Sandra Bullock, like one of her first roles, really good too. She has to drive the bus. Keanu Reeves, obviously being a badass.
It just sounds like is it like late 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah, 90s.
It just sounds like a wild concept that works for that time.
I know, it was so great. I think it would. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and the direction was good. Everything really came together with this, and I very much enjoyed it, and I could see why it was like a remembered like classic action movie, and why it put Keanu on the map in general.
Yeah.
Before like The Matrix, obviously.
Oh yeah, obviously. Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I really liked it, and I was made me want to like watch some of those other Keanu like action movies like that we had in the 90s and 80s. So yeah, I really like Speed.
I have the 22nd.
Okay.
That's good?
Yep.
Okay. On 22nd, I watched Old Boy. This movie is very hard to obtain and watch. It's not hard. It's just very it's just annoying. Old Boy is like it's a Korean not Korean. I think it's South Korean. I'm pretty sure it's South Korean. Let me look. So it's a South Korean movie, and it's just so annoying because you can't find it anywhere digitally. You have to like exclusively buy it physically, and it's not Prime or anything. So it comes. I ordered this movie in like March, and it came in April, and I was like, oh, good, I can watch it this month because I was like, I forgot I ordered it almost, and then it came in. I'm like, oh, good, I've been meaning to watch this. Directing's very well. I gave it 4.25 stars. It's one of those movies.
Okay.
The issue, the reason I gave that is because for most of the movie, I was like, I don't know where this is going, and like not a good way. I was kind of like, I'm not sure, because it is kind of like, he gets imprisoned for some reason, and you don't know why. And the whole point of the movie is he's figuring out who imprisoned him and why, and he finds out who does it, and he's like, I'll kill myself if you find out why. Like, I have a pacemaker, which is like a artificial heart thing.
Right.
So he's like, I have the button here to turn it off. Like, if you find out why I did this to you, like, I'll kill myself. And the whole point of the story is that he's trying to figure out the guy and why. That's like kind of not halfway through, but like a quarter through, he finds the guy. But the whole point of the movie is he's trying to figure out why the guy put him in there. And he's like, I'll give you a hint. It's like it's like, oh, it's a famous quote. It's like a rock and a grain of sand, like both fall in water. It was supposed to signify like the littlest thing. It to me signified like it could have been something that big or that little that you did.
Yeah.
And I felt in the story, he meets this woman like as soon as he leaves, and they like immediately fall in love. And I was like, oh, this is kind of like a little forced, isn't it? And he kind of has this relationship with this girl, and she helps him find the guy and figure out why. And while I was doing that, there's one famous fight scene where he's like fights off like literally 30 people, and it's really well directed and shot, and it's like a hallway scene, but it's like shot through the hallway wall.
I think I've seen that.
It's a famous fight scene.
Yeah. And
I was kind of like, I don't know where this is going. And then as soon as you kind of figure out what happened, I'm like, oh, okay, I can see why this happened. And then the twist comes, and you're like, oh, oh, it's like, wow, this is horrible. That's what bumped it up to 4.25.
I have to check it out.
Because I can give you the physical copy.
Oh, cool,
That's
cool.
it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I figured out as soon as that comes, you're like, oh, now I know why this is like everyone rates this 5 stars. Because at first I was like, I have a feeling something's gonna happen at the end because nothing's really happening. It's a 4.3 on Letterboxd. I'm like, something's got to happen that makes this so good, and then it happens. And I'm like, oh wow, this is very good. And I was watching a video on it after. It's based off like a manga, and the manga apparently is like the reason that he does it is like completely different, and it's much more like real and like not real, but more like kind of depressing and saddening. And in the movie, what happens is like awful, but it's like it's different, and it was really good. Very, very good movie.
Nice.
And the end is kind of ambiguous too, but in a good way.
Yeah, there's usually
Yeah.
good ambiguous endings. On the 23rd, I actually have 2 things, but one of them I guess we won't talk about. Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Oh, okay.
It's on Letterboxd.
I mean, we both talk about it.
It was pretty good. I don't really have anything to say about it besides like it was solid.
We both gave it 3 stars.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
And then also on the 23rd, I have Mortal Kombat. I gave it 2.5 stars. Very dumb, very stupid, very cheesy, but a little bit of fun. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, I had a feeling it was gonna be. I didn't watch it, but
just fine.
I was like, it's another video game movie.
Yeah,
and it's made by a big studio. It's just gonna be.
If I saw it in theaters, I would have been furious, and I probably would have given it like a 1 star. But I I saw it at home.
Yeah,
it was fine.
Yeah,
I don't have it took away an hour of my life, an hour and a half, whatever the fuck, however long. It was fine.
Yeah,
just fine.
Well, I have 29. That was your last one?
No, I have one more after this. But
you have today?
Yeah.
Oh, you finished it?
Yeah.
Okay. So then I'll go on my timer after that, I guess, because
I have the 30th.
I have the 20. Yeah.
Okay.
So last night I watched Curious Case of Benjamin Button, which is by the director we were talking about earlier, David Fincher.
Oh, that's right.
I always confuse him. Very well directed movie. I can tell that he has that class and style to it. I did like it. It's kind of just like the criticism I've heard is that he kind of just goes through his life, but it's just the quirk is that he's just aging physically backwards.
Something, yeah.
But they don't really do a lot with that, and they kind of don't, but at the same time they do. They spend a lot of time on him being old, but he's young, like him being old growing up.
Right.
And then he kind of goes through all these events in his life, and he has his love interest, and they're kind of on and off, and about an hour left in the movie, I realized something. I'm like, I guess I'll go off my turn right now. I was like, this movie has a lot of similarities with Forrest Gump. And then I went back in my head on all the things, and I have a list.
Of things that are similar? Okay.
I have like literally 40 things that are the same thing. And I looked this up to make sure I'm not crazy. The people have noticed this.
Okay.
So I'm about to spoil a lot of the movie too. So,
I'll still watch it.
Both movies start somewhere else. Forrest Gump, he starts on the bench. Benjamin Button, it starts with an old woman in a hospital bed. The character is telling a story, so Forrest Gump and Forrest Gump's telling the story. And Benjamin Button, it's the love interest of the story.
Is telling the story.
Telling the story. The main interest, not technically, but it's like it's her daughter telling the story. So either way.
Okay.
It's a very long movie. They're both over 2.5 hours.
Okay.
It's both about the chronicle of their life, essentially.
Okay.
They're both Southern characters. Benjamin Button's born in Louisiana, in New Orleans, Louisiana. Forrest Gump's born in Greenville, Alabama. They're both Southern characters. There's a gimmick to the main character. Forrest Gump has a low IQ. Benjamin Button ages physically backwards. The main character has voiceover throughout the movie, so there'll be parts of the scene where he literally sounds like Tom Hanks doing the Forrest Gump voice. They both live in like a home where people come and go. In Forrest Gump, it's like the bed and breakfast. In this movie, it's like an old folks home, kind of, where people kind of just go there and they have like their servants and then they kind of die, so that's the way they leave.
Okay.
But in Forrest Gump, it's like they kind of come and go. They both have a loving mother. The mother in Benjamin Button is... So basically what happens in the movie is that he gets born by this family and the wife dies giving birth, and the dad's like, my son is hideous because he is born like an old man, and he's like, I'm gonna leave it at the doorstep of this family. He's like, I'm just gonna leave the baby, and he leaves at a house, and it's like this not even like a black couple. It's just like this maid to the house like kind of because it starts on like I'm assuming Amnesty Day, which would be I think that's the correct day, which is like the end date of World War One. So it's 1911. Okay. And it's just like this maid. She picks up the baby and she's like, I have to care for this. I think it's literally gonna die, so I don't think it's gonna be here much longer. So we have to take care of it while we can. And so it's a black mom. She like absolutely loves him. And in Forrest Gump, Mama just loves Forrest so much.
Yep.
She does anything she can for him. They both kind of have a lack of a father. Forrest Gump, obviously, the dad's just not even there at all. She technically doesn't even have a dad. Mahershala Ali's in this too, surprisingly. And I was like, oh, he's an actual actor. Like he's gonna have some good stuff. Not really.
No, good.
He's kind of like the love interest for the mom, but he doesn't really act as like a fatherly figure in any way. The dad is in the movie later, but again, it's a mainly lack of a father throughout the whole story. There's shots edited to look old. In Forrest Gump, in the beginning, there's a KKK shot where it's like grainy black and white because he's like I'm named after my great grandfather Louis. I forgot, but he's like a KKK member.
Oh, okay.
And in this movie, actually really funny. There's an old guy there that's like, I've been struck by lightning 7 times, and throughout the movie, he's like has amnesia or like Alzheimer's, so he repeats it 7 times. You find out all the 7 times he's getting struck by lightning.
Oh, cool!
And it's really funny, and it's styled like an old-fashioned kind of like yellowy, like whatever kind of film edits to it. They both have a strange childhood because obviously not strange, but they get picked on and noticed for their issue, their gimmick.
Right.
Because he's old when he's young. And he gets in issues where they think like he's talking to people who shouldn't because he looks old. Yeah, and they're like, shame on you for talking to these kids, even though he's 7. And in Forrest Gump, he gets picked on for being just low IQ.
Yeah.
They both meet the love interest when they're young. So Forrest Gump, he meets Jenny on the bus, like the first day of school. And in this movie, he meets the love interest, and she's like the granddaughter of someone at the house. There's a scene with the love interest, and they figure out like the main character's strange. So there's a scene literally when they're both young, and in Forrest Gump, she's like, "Are you stupid or something?" He's like, "Stupid is as stupid does." And then in Benjamin Button, there's a scene where she's like, "I know you were like not actually how old you look, like you act different." The main character and the love interest are played by multiple actors.
Okay.
Forrest Gump, it's a life story. So you have like the young Forrest, and you have Tom Hanks. In this movie, it's multiple different people playing, not Brad Pitt, but the love interest. There's multiple people playing her. They both go off to war.
Oh, really?
Gump, he gets sent off to Vietnam. In this movie, it's World War II for Benjamin Button. They both write the love interest during the war. Gump writes Jenny, but doesn't get him. And in Benjamin Button, what happens for Benjamin Button is he ends up being like a seaman. He works on like a really small boat, and then Pearl Harbor happens, and the main guy of the boat's like, we are going to go off to war. Like if you don't want to come, like you're not. If you step on the boat, we're going. And he's like, okay, now I'm going to war. And he writes the girl during the time. They both return to war and see love interest. They both have difficulties with an on and off relationship. The love interest has a boyfriend and brings the main character to a party. For Forrest Gump, it's the Black Panther party.
Yep.
And then for Benjamin Button, it's like this New York like post play, because she's a dancer. Mm-hmm. It's like this post ballet kind of party. Okay. And they both don't see each other for a while. So after that, they kind of just disperse. Like Forrest goes off after seeing Jenny in DC, and in this movie, Brad Pitt, Benjamin Button goes off. There's a hospital scene where the issue has an issue with their legs. So in the scene, she's a ballet dancer. She gets hit by a car, and that just like destroys her career.
Oh, great.
And then in Forrest Gump, you have Lieutenant Dan. His legs are just gone fully. They both become seamen. There's like literally a 2-minute shot of Brad Pitt, and he's like, I bought a boat, and I'm like, okay, this is a waste of time. And then obviously in Forrest Gump, he becomes a shrimp boat.
Yeah.
Let me see. They both witness famous events in American history. So throughout their life, obviously Forrest Gump is more prevalent. Yeah. But in this movie, there's a shot of him on the boat, and there's like the rocket ship going off in the moon for the first time. Oh, and I believe even in Forrest Gump that happens, but he's playing ping pong. They have the love interest enter back into their life, like they've willingly come back into their life. There's a montage of them being happy together. So in Forrest Gump, that's when they're singing Alabama, Sweet Home Alabama, and in this movie, it's like there's 2 different montages. There's a scene where it's raining and thundering, and they're both in bed. The main character, the main character of both of them, the mother has an illness and just suddenly dies. So Forrest Gump, he's like, Mama has cancer and she just dies. And in this movie, he goes back to the house, and they're like, "Oh, Queen died." That was like the mom's, I guess, nickname.
Okay.
They're like, "Queen died." There's a scene in a black Southern church with gospel music playing. So in Forrest Gump, it's like that famous scene where Gump is there, and they're like, "Why is he here?" It's because of Bubba.
Yeah.
And in this movie, it's at the funeral, and they're singing gospel. The main character has a voiceover extra comment about the mother. In Forrest Gump, he goes, "She got the cancer and died on Tuesday." And then for Benjamin Button, he's like, "We buried her beside her beloved Mr. Weathers," which is Michelle Ali. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. All the similarities in this movie. And I'm like halfway through.
Oh my god.
I'll try to speed them up. The main character goes to a significant spot with the love interest. In Forrest Gump, it's the tree. Yep. In this movie, it's a dock because there's a point in the movie where Benjamin Button's dad like knows it's him. He comes back and he's like, "I'm dying," and he goes to that dock and the dad dies. He goes with their love interest to that dock. The love interest gets pregnant by the main character. There's a scene at a park with a child in serious talk. In Forrest Gump, it's the AIDS talk. And in this movie, he's like, "I'm not going to be able to raise this child because I'm going to start aging now and looking younger and acting younger. So it's not going to work." They both had famous company. He had Buttons, and then he had Bubblegum Shrimp. The character is in a relationship that just up and leaves. So in Forrest Gump, Jenny just leaves one day, and then obviously she writes Forrest later. In this movie, it's Benjamin Button that just ups and leaves.
Mm-hmm.
They use CG to alter faces. And in Forrest Gump, they have many historical scenes where they have to alter the face and make him look like you're talking. In this movie, they edit Brad Pitt to make him look really young. There's a shot of the love interest leaving the main character. There's a "What if I could fly" scene. There's literally a scene where Benjamin Button's on the top of the roof and he's like 7 now. He's like, "You think I could fly?" And they're like, "No, you can't. You're going to die if you jump off this building, this house." And then in Forrest Gump, there's Jenny that's like, "You think I could fly, Forrest, if I jump off this bridge?"
Oh my god.
There's a children's book used multiple times. In Forrest Gump, there's the Curious George book that leads to him showing young Forrest Jr. And then in Benjamin Button, there's a book that the grandmother, the love interest, showed to both of them when they were young. There's a surviving partner. When Benjamin Button dies, and then the love interest is the surviving partner, and Forrest Gump is Shani that dies. And then the movie ends with a token. And what I mean by that is in Forrest Gump, there's a feather that opens in Curious George. It flies away and the movie ends.
Yeah.
In this movie, the Navy. The reason they're in the Navy is because they have the captain who's like, "We're gonna go." The captain dies. There's like this scene where there's a big battle, sort of, and the captain dies. And later he's like, he loved hummingbirds. And out at sea, there's a hummingbird that shows up to Benjamin Button, and he's like, that had to have been him. And at the end of the movie, there's a hummingbird that shows up like at the outside of the window where the old woman's dying, and then she finally lets go, and the movie just ends.
There you go.
So those are all the similarities, and I was like, this is literally Forrest Gump, but just in my opinion worse.
There you have it. On April 30th, I watched another round, and that was where I ended the month. Similar to the American Beauty. Similar to American Beauty, I think this movie also deals with a midlife crisis, where we have a man in this movie who is sort of feeling kind of mundane and very not energetic at all about anything. And then he's hanging out with his friends one night, and they're all like, "Yo, I heard that if you have 0.5% blood alcohol content forever, like just all the time, you are like more relaxed, more fun, and all these things." So
You're gonna die.
They're just drinking all the time. And that's the plot. And so it's a similar thing. I mean, it works. Like, he's more fun and he's cool to be around, but it fucks up more than it helps.
Yeah.
Similar to American Beauty, where he has a midlife crisis and he's just working out and buying things and falling in love with small girls. This movie is more like, I'm gonna drink all the time to cope with my shit life.
Die.
Yeah.
So.
Well. 0.5 is not even where they stop. They go higher and higher.
Oh my god!
Yep, and it's not good.
Oh my god!
But yeah, I enjoyed that movie. What would you say out of this entire month was your favorite film? Our pandemic pick, if you will.
Pandemic pick. It was Dog Day Afternoon. Easily the best. The first movie I saw of the month, and easily the best movie I've seen this year so far.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay.
Really
Mine is American Beauty, I think, for this month. I really, I thought about it. Pretty much, I was tossed up between that and Minority Report. I also Dog Day Afternoon was great.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't want to have the same one as you because that's boring. But Minority Report because I'm so tied to that concept right now, and also American Beauty is just like a classic film.
Oh yeah, no.
So I guess I would probably go with American Beauty. Yeah, that does it.
Yeah.
For the first monthly edition of Letterwatchd. If you enjoyed this, let us know. Subscribe to us on all of the podcasts once I figure out how to do all that again, because I did it with Mayhem Zone, and now I got to do it again with this one. So yeah, this is the first episode in the books, April 2021. You could tune in next month for May, and let us know if you would like to see anything done differently, if you want to see us do something else. You might even see this video on YouTube. There's a chance that I might edit this and put video in it and have it be a YouTube thing as well, because to do something different and to have content on YouTube all the time. And subscribe to Mayhem Pictures. That is where we reside on YouTube. We do short films, we do skits, we do reviews, things like that all the time.
Yeah, it's been really fun. I'm really looking forward to next month.
So yeah, keep tuning in to Letterwatched, and we'll see you guys next month. Goodbye.
Goodbye.